One of the best ways to influence people is through stories. Some of the biggest companies in the world, whether it's Apple, Tata, or Tesla, all of these companies have some sort of stories associated with them that helps you feel connected to them in one way or another. Because of those stories, you want to buy their product. But that being said, how can you leverage stories to actually influence people and build connections? Hi, my name is Mohit, and in this video, we'll be talking about how you can influence people by using stories. And I'll be sharing three types of stories that you can leverage to influence people in different ways. And not just that, I will also be sharing an offline workshop that I am conducting with global change makers. And the title of that workshop is Influential Storytelling. It's happening this Sunday, that is the 4th of February 2024. And if you'd like to know more about it, you can check the description to know more and register as well. That being said, let's just begin with what are the three different types of stories that you can use to influence people. Now, these stories are classified based on what part of brain do they tackle. So the first part is the amygdala or the reptilian brain. So stories that tackle the reptilian brain, I classify them as reptilian stories. Now, what do these stories do? Now, the primary response of the amygdala is fight or flight. So, any story that is related to life or death, or any story that is related to, let's say, scarcity of resources, scarcity of money, or scarcity of food, or not having shelter, or any story in the wild. Let's say you go to a sanctuary and you're spending some time in the wild. Any story relating to that is a reptilian story. And people love these kind of stories because there's a sense of danger and a sense of thrill that is associated with these stories. The second type of story is the mammalian story. Now, again, mammalian stories, what do? They tackle the mammalian brain. So, reptilian brain is related to fight or flight, anything that is primal. Mammalian stories are stories that make you feel some sort of emotion. About a reptile. Now, reptiles don't feel the range of emotions that mammals do. For example, let's say if you have a pet snake, no matter how much you feed that snake, let's say you've been treating and you have been with that snake for, let's say, a year or a year and a half or 2 years. But if it's a python, let's say, right, and you stop feeding it for, let's say, even a week, it will come for you in your sleep. And it will try and strangle you, and it will try and eat you. It doesn't care about loyalty. The reptile is not going to remember, oh, you cared so much for it. That is how reptiles are. A dog, no matter how cruel you have been to him, if you have taken care of that dog for a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long that is, it's never going to, let's say, eat you. It's always going to remember that, okay, you are someone that took care of him. So he's not going to want to hurt you in any way. Why? Because again, the dog is loyal to you. The dog has that sense of feeling, those emotions associated with you. So mammalian stories are stories that, let's say, evoke any kind of emotion, whether it's related to, love or loyalty, or you staying true to your values, you helping someone out. These are the stories that evoke mammalian emotions: honesty, trust, love, empathy, care. Correct? So these are mammalian stories. And the third type of stories tackle the logical and the human brain. Correct? These stories have logic and numbers, or very, intellectual things associated to them. For example, any story that has a high death toll. You know what? This incident happened, and because of that, so many people were affected. Rains are happening in Bombay, and because of that, the streets have been flooded, and a lot of people have been dislocated from their houses. They're in shambles. Correct? So a story like this, that is tackling the human brain. Correct? It is depicting numbers that, okay, this many people, this is what's happening. So it's mostly related to logic. Correct? So now this was a story that had a mix of reptilian, mammalian, and logic, because it had numbers depicting scale. These are the three different types of stories. But that being said, which story actually influences us the most? What do you think? Now here's the thing, right? When it comes to matters of business, let's say you're going up to an investor, then they primarily care about the intellectual stories, because they want to see numbers, they want to see the scale at which your company or your startup or whatever it is that you are doing, whatever it is that you are seeking investment for, what is the impact at scale that is being created. So they would want a story that has a lot of logic associated with it. Now, let's say if you are with a group of friends, what kind of stories would they like? Well, in that case, they don't care about intellectual stories. They don't want to know about the numbers of a business. All they care about is the connection and the feelings that you are able to evoke. So in that scenario, reptilian and mammalian emotions are the best. If you are going in front of an audience, or you are actually selling something to someone. Now, if you want to sell something to someone, you need to create a strong urge and a strong drive for action. And the strongest drives of action come from fear. Fear is a reptilian emotion. So, in that scenario, the reptilian stories work the best. Based on what is your purpose, let's say if you're going to an investor, use a mix of stories that are reptilian and mammalian, but primarily they are intellectual and they have logic associated to them. So that should be the primary theme of the story, logic surrounded by reptilian mammalian stories. Now let's say if you are with a group of friends, forget the logic part. All they care about is feeling good, feeling happy, thrill, excitement, some sort of emotion. In that scenario, you can use a primarily mammalian story that is tackling the emotions like trust, honesty, loyalty, care, excitement, or anything like that. You can support that with a reptilian story as well. Now, if you are trying to drive some sort of action, then you need to use reptilian stories as the core. You can surround that story with mammalian or logical elements as well. Correct? So that is how you use three types of stories: reptilian, mammalian, and human or logical stories. Now, that being said, as much as I would love to give you more examples of how you can use these stories, how you can use a reptilian story, how you can use a mammalian story, how you can use a human story to actually create some sort of influence, connection, drive sales, or whatever it is that you want to do. But because of the limitation of time duration, I cannot do this in this video itself, but I will be doing it in future videos. So if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe right now. And my goal with this channel is to help people be the most powerful and the most confident version of themselves. So if that sounds interesting to you, subscribe right now. And that being said, if you'd like to know more about how you can leverage stories to create influence and propel in your career, as I've mentioned before, I'm coming up with a workshop with Global Change Makers, and this is an offline workshop, and the details of the workshop are mentioned below. It is happening in Ahmedabad. So if you are in Ahmedabad and you would like to know how you can utilize stories to actually propel forward in your career, the details are mentioned below. And now, if let's say you are watching this sometime later, correct, then I guess the workshop might have been done. So in that scenario, if you'd like to attend more workshops, and you would like to become a part of our community, the details of that have been mentioned below as well. Thank you so much for watching, and whatever your thoughts are, whatever information or whatever knowledge you'd like next, let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Take care. Cheers.